Bonjour, hello my geeky wine friends. This is Angie Sam here on another episode of Burgundy Deep Dive. Today we're going to focus on the most romantic vineyard of them all, the Amoureuses. Now, before I start, for those of you who've never met me before, I just wanted to do a quick intro. I'm Angie. I'm one of the very few Chinese-English bilingual advanced level sommelier in the world. I'm located here in California, and about 5 years ago, I started my own website. My gem is to find mostly high-end Burgundy and California cold wine at a ridiculously great price to offer to my small group of clients and friends. With that being said, if you're interested to see what I have to offer, it is pretty awesome. Please go check out my website, www.angiesam.com, or at least just sign up for my mailing list and see what I have down the pipeline. It might not be a ton of stock and a lot of inventory I keep on hand. It's because I curate and find the best deals, and they usually sell very quickly, so it never hurt to add on to my list. All right, let's get to it. Amoureuses. It is, like I said, the most romantic Burgundy vineyard probably we all know of. It has a beautiful romantic name that roughly translates into the lovers. It is in the heart of Chambord-Musigny, and the region that's normally agreed by all Burgundy drinkers as in the region that produces the most elegant, most delicate, the lighter style of Burgundy. But Amoureuses, just like the Grand Cru Musigny right next to it, is not to be taken lightly. When it's made in the best producer and the best year, it can be just as intense as Geoffroy Chambertin and just as complex as in any Grand Cru in Bon Romani. It can't help but fall in love with it. And if you've seen any of my videos before, you know I'm a huge wine geek. So we're gonna go on a Google Map or Google Earth tool, and we're gonna get close and personal in, it is turning. We're going to find the vineyard. Here we are. We're looking at Europe. We're going to zoom in right here on France. We're going to literally zero in on where this Premier Cru Vineyard is. So here's France. Now we're going to look for Burgundy, which is somewhere over here. And here's Burgundy. We see the city of Beaune, and it's north of that is between Beaune and Dijon. And we got Nuits-Saint-Georges. It's a little bit north of that. See, now we see all the main village, Geoffroy Chambertin, Chambord-Musigny, Nuits-Saint-Georges, and Amoureuses is right in the village of Chambord-Musigny, south of Moray-Saint-Denis, and north of Clos-Vougeot. So in the town of Chambord-Musigny is where we're focusing at. And as I've seen in many, many episodes before, one of the hardest things about Burgundy is how separated each vineyard is because of the Napoleon law. By law, they have to pass down their vineyard equally to their kids. So the vineyards continue through the years to become more and more separated. And it's so cool to see it from Google Earth because you can see the different color. That is literally where the parcels are being divided within the vineyard. And you can tell that just because of different owners, their practice, the way they prune, the way they grow, the way they plant, it produces a really unique color. Alright, so then we're in Chambord-Musigny, and right here, I know it's kind of hard to tell, but this is the famous La Musigny Grand Cru Vineyard. It's kind of on the southern edge of the village, just butted up right next to Clos-Vougeot Grand Cru Vineyard, and Amoureuses, the Premier Cru, is right here. It's not as clear in this Google Earth photo. It's much better right on this map. Just note that they've turned the map sideways, so north is pointing that way. So earlier we saw that this is La Musigny, which is one of the most famous Grand Cru, and Vougeot's right here, the biggest Grand Cru out of all Burgundy. The Lovest Vineyard is this tiny little parcel right over here. It's butted right up against La Musigny, and it is considered a Premier Cru because it's technically kind of on the wrong side of the road. Historically, you wanted to be on the other side of the road to be all the best Grand Cru vineyard. While we're staring at this map, let's talk about how they get a name from. So the name, La Amoureuses, which means the lovers, you would think it has a very romantic backstory, but not as romantic as you thought. It was thought to be derived from the lovers being a place where young lovers would go to embrace, although Jasper Morris suggested that because the soil here gets really thick when it rains and it sticks to your shoes or your boots, the soil clings to you like a young lover. So it doesn't seem like a likely story just because there's many parts of Burgundy where this could easily be true. I choose to just believe that there is a very romantic story back there somewhere, hence why it gets its name. Now, the unique thing about this vineyard is the soil type. So the soil type here at Amoureuses is a lot of active limestone and very interesting lack of clay, because most other region of Burgundy you get a good mixture of clay, which means you get a more delicate style of wine. I think it's a little more floral and mineral driven, and hence why I think people really do love the wine. So Amoureuses is one of the most famous Premier Cru Vineyard, very similar to, if you're really into Burgundy, the Cru in Romani that is made famous by Henri Jayer, or the Clos Saint-Jacques in Gevrey-Chambertin, which is made famous by Amoureuses. Both of those producers, respectively, in their Premier Cru Vineyard, have always regarded their wines coming from those vineyards just as good as Grand Cru and charged accordingly. The story is exactly the same here at Amoureuses, but there is a lot more producers here than the other two Premier Cru Vineyard we've talked about, which also makes it a little more confusing. But one thing to be sure, they definitely ask for Grand Cru pricing when it comes to the wine coming out of here. With honestly only a total of 5.4 hectares or 13 acres of land, it's all about supply and demand, and of course, if the wine is good, it's going to be very expensive. So let's geek out a little bit on the producers and the land size. So first, I wanted to kind of share with you that this vineyard being broken down into little pieces. So roughly it's divided into 40 individual parcels and is owned between about 13 different owner or landowner, although some of them might contract and sell some of their fruit to other producers. So you might see more producer than landowners here. So over here on the southern tip, the triangle here is considered some of the best plot owned by all the best producer, and as you can tell, it's the closest to the Grand Cru Moussigny, so hence why it usually asks for the highest price. And as you can see on this list here, that Robert Gruffier by far has the most plot of land, coming about 1.12 hectare. And also I want to thank Wine Hawk for super geeky. They always have really amazing maps that really break down the detailed ownership of producer in each individual vineyard, so props to them. And then you think about next up, we have the biggest producer being Domaine Drouhin, which is only 0.6 or 0.59 hectare. That equates to about 3,000 bottles. Again, not cases, but bottles each year. And next one is Comme Georges de Vaux. They make anywhere between 1,500 to 2,500 bottles each year. And as you can tell, even though their sizes are pretty similar, they probably have either older vine or lower yield and probably a combine of both. Hence why their production is actually a lot lower, even though they own similar land sizes. And we count all the way down here with Louis Jodol only owning 0.12 hectare. And don't you love it? That is so far divine that for Domaine Plus d'Or, they have it carried out to 4 digits after the decimal point. They own 0.1965 hectare. This is how small these vineyards are. Just to give you an idea, mentioned Louis Jodol owns about 0.12 hectare of land in the Amoureuses vineyard, and that actually roughly translates to about 13,000 square foot. So once again, hence why it's so highly thought after and very, very hard to find when you're looking for wines like this. Now we're going to get geekier and rank them by price, just to give you an idea on the range and the price point. We're going to start from the top. So the most famous, I guess, Amoureuses vineyard, it is made by Roumier, and their average price, and this is a price given to us by winesearcher.com. They source wine pricing from all over the world from different retailers, and this is again across all the different vintages. And obviously, because of other previous vintage from the legendary year, that is probably very hard to find. It also inflate the price a little bit. But even in the recent vintage, you're looking at least about $2,000 a bottle on the top producer for Amoureuses vineyard. And then it goes down from there to close to average $18,500 a bottle. And going down, we have Joseph Drouin, as we learned from the earlier chart, as one of the biggest land producer, and even their price is still averaging in about $558 a bottle. And when you go down to the bottom of the list, you have the Albert Pichot, which is ridiculously reasonable in pricing in comparison, on the average of close to $300 a bottle. So definitely not a wine for every day, and not a wine to come by easily. But if you ever get a chance, give a go on the famous Lovers Vineyard of Burgundy. A lot of my clients, once they try, it's really hard to come back. Hence why I'm always on the market looking for good price, good vintage, good producer, or any producer actually, because it's just so hard to come by to offer for my client. With that being said, that kind of concludes my little deep dive on the Lovers Vineyard for you today. I hope you'll learn a little something or two. If you're interested to see what I have to offer right now, again, I'm a small operation. I'm always looking for the best deal possible. So you'll usually find the price being really attractive. So go on www.angiesum.com, sign up for my mailing list, or subscribe to my YouTube channel here, whatever you like. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. I wish you a good day, and I'll see you next time.